If you're over the age of 62 and you're thinking about taking Social Security, watch this video so you don't ruin your retirement.
Today we're going to talk about the benefits of taking Social Security early versus delaying your Social Security.
Thanks everyone for joining. My name's Alec Sunners. I'm joined by my colleague Peter Geyer, and today we're talking about how to not ruin your retirement by taking Social Security at the wrong time. So let's start with talking about taking your benefit early, and maybe just the psychological why do people take their benefit early. And I think a lot of the time is they think, I'm not gonna live long. I have poor family history, I'm gonna die early. Let me take my benefit early and lock in that benefit and make sure I'm not losing out on potential benefit in years where I know I'm alive and I'm gonna spend that money. And I think that leads into the next point of why people take it early is while they're young, they wanna spend that money. So they wanna take their benefit early so that they can spend it when they retire to go travel, go buy things, do what they wanna do in their early retirement years when they have the energy to do so. And I think also people are worried about Social Security running out, right? And we're going to talk about that, but I think it's just something that is in people's minds of, hey, like, I don't know if this is going to be around my entire life. Let me collect early so that I know I have this benefit coming in.
Yeah, so we're moving to this chart of kind of showing the danger of collecting Social Security early. So you look at, if you claim at 62 as opposed to 67 at full retirement age, you're only going to get 70% of your full benefit. If you collect at 64, you're going to receive 80% of your benefit. So you're collecting 60 months in advance from your full retirement age, you're only going to see 70%, a 30% reduction. If you collect at 64, so 36 months early, you're going to see a 20% reduction, so 80% of your full retirement benefit.
Right, and we can see that collecting early leads to a lower benefit. So what's the danger in that? And the danger in that is you're living longer, right? So if we look at this chart here, the blue line is going to represent your age 62 benefit, the white line is going to represent age 67, and then that gold line is going to be your age 70 benefit. They're all going to be inflated out at 2.5%. That can change and vary year to year. But what this chart is showing us is that age of death, the longer you live, the higher the benefit's going to be the longer you wait for your Social Security. So the longer you live, the better it's going to be to collect your Social Security later. And we can never say when someone's going to die, but it's always good to sort of play the odds and say, what are the odds I'm gonna live to a certain age? And then collect based on that data that you do have.
So let's talk about the reasons why people collect early. There's three main reasons: poor health, volatile markets when you're retiring, and then if you're single. So like Alec just mentioned, you never know when you're going to pass away. So you tell me when you're going to pass away, we will tell you when to take Social Security. So if you're in poor health, you have a low life expectancy, you want to take it as early as you can because you're going to miss out. You're not going to worry about trying to beat the system of, I'm going to maximize my Social Security. I'm going to try and get it early as I can so that I have a guaranteed income early in my retirement. We talk about volatile markets. You don't want to be pulling your money out. So if you push your Social Security back and you say you wait till 70, you're going to be taking from your retirement accounts, your IRAs, your 401ks. So if you're taking money out while you're in a down market, you're going to be selling at a discount and you're not going to be able to hit that recovery and see those gains in the long run. Now let's move over to when you're single. You don't have the flexibility of maybe taking a survivor benefit, taking your spousal benefit. So a survivor benefit is when your spouse passes away, you then, if your spouse makes more than you can then take their benefit. If you have a spousal benefit and you don't work, you can receive up to 50% of your spouse's Social Security. Another point I might add is if you're single, you typically have a lower life expectancy than married couples. You're kind of commingling as a married couple. You are forcing each other to push harder in life and kind of create that value in life. If you're single, you might want to think about taking it early just because you kind of have that lower life expectancy.
Again, play the odds.
Right.
If you're single, you typically have a shorter life expectancy. Just play those odds. And those are great reasons to collect early. And you might be sitting there thinking, yeah, great, I'm done with the video. But there are reasons that people wait to collect. And I think the biggest benefit of waiting is you do get that larger benefit. You will get more money by waiting to collect. That one, that monthly check you're getting is bigger, but also it's going to compound on itself.
Right.
In the scenario we used earlier, we said 2.5%, and that's going to vary year by year, but that 2.5% is going to compound on an already bigger benefit. So you're going to see bigger and bigger and bigger monthly checks if you're waiting to collect. Also, you're going to get a higher survivor benefit for your spouse if you wait to collect. So you can, again, play the odds between the two spouses, who has the higher expected Social Security, who's got the longevity, and look at those odds and say, yeah, I'm going to wait to collect so that my spouse can potentially have that higher benefit when I pass away. Lastly, if you have your mother alive at 95 and your father at 92 and your grandmother lived to 100, et cetera, you're going to say, well, yeah, if I'm living that long, I'm waiting to collect too, so I can make sure I have that benefit for the rest of my life.
So let's look at, is collecting later in retirement the best option? So we looked at the graph of collecting early and how you could see the subtle decrease. Now we're going to look at the graph and see how you can see the subtle increase. So each year that you wait, it's on average about an 8% increase. So you collect at 68, it's 108 of what you're going to get, 108%. If you collect at 69, it's going to be 116%. If you collect at the max at 70, you're going to get 124% of your full retirement benefit.
Well, that sounds great to me.
Yeah.
There are dangers of collecting late, though, and it's sort of the opposite of the dangers of collecting early. And the dangers of collecting late are if you do have illiquid investments and you're waiting to collect. Well, if they're illiquid, you can't sell them. Now you're looking at, where am I going to get my retirement income? And it can be tricky if your investments are structured in that way, when you don't have that Social Security coming in once you're retired.
Right.
Also, like I mentioned earlier, people are worried about Social Security running out, and I'm going to say it's going to run out in 2033. What I really mean by that is, if there are no changes that Congress makes, the fund for Social Security is going to run out in 2033, and then Social Security is only going to pay out 83% of the monthly benefits. That's yet to be seen if that even comes to fruition, but when people are worried about Social Security running out, what they really should be thinking about is, if I take a reduction in Social Security, it's not going to just go away completely. The other danger of collecting late is you are going to have less income in your so-called go-go years, right? When you're newly retired, well, you still have the energy to travel and do things, you are going to have less income coming in, and you're going to have to supplement that in other ways. The other danger of collecting late is if you have a spouse with higher earnings than you, and then you're both waiting to collect until 66, 68, 69, 70, etc. Well, if one of you passes away at 75, your benefit, the lower benefit, is just gone, wiped out. So by waiting all that time, you're going to lose out if you die early.
So we're going to do a recap here. So we talked about all the different decisions regarding Social Security, but it really comes down to, what do you value more? So it's impossible to predict when you're going to pass away. It's kind of like predicting the weather. So it deals with something that's inevitable. You're going to pass away, but it really comes down to when. If you tell me when you're going to pass away, I'm going to tell you when to take Social Security.
Right.
But it's more psychological than anything. So it's, what do you value more? So do you value income while you're young, or do you value getting that lifetime maximum? Something that we've found with our clients are that people who delay Social Security and then sometimes are diagnosed with that long-term illness or a terminal illness, they typically have more regrets of delaying Social Security than someone who took it early and probably won't necessarily maximize how much they're going to get. You got to think about the protection against longevity versus the risk of dying young. Do you have a short or long-term longevity? Do you have people living into their 90s? Do you have mothers and fathers who died early? Maybe it's due to cancer, maybe it's heart problems, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Do you value locking in a growth rate versus maybe having more flexible investments? Do you really and it leads us into that next point of, are you conservative or are you risky? Do you really want that fixed rate as opposed to maybe a more variable rate that could grow and grow and grow? Or do you want that steady income in retirement, in early retirement, as opposed to trying to really maximize how much you're going to get?
And I think the big thing with Social Security is there is the correct financial decision that you can make based on a bunch of statistics, right? You can look at the data for longevity and things like that and get the absolute best, statistically most accurate answer financially. But on the other end, there is also that emotional answer. And that's going to depend on all of these different factors. So I think with the answer that you need to come to is somewhere in the middle of the financial and the emotional. Right. There's going to be extremes on both ends, but typically the right answer is somewhere in the middle.
Right.
So if you've watched this video and you have any more follow-up questions for us, you can always reach out to your primary advisor. If you're not a client and you're interested in becoming one, we're going to put a QR code up on the screen that'll schedule a free 30-minute intro call with us where we can discuss who we are, what we do, and how we can best serve you. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.